Braveheart Workshops is hosting a virtual online event, creating hope, health, and healing in 2021. Transformation through empowerment and connection. Embrace the truth that you are loved and matter. Join us on Friday, March 12, 2021 from 1 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. During this time of uncertainty, find ways to manage stress, balance your emotions, replenish your energy, promote well-being for yourself and loved ones. Take time to pray and meditate. Give purpose to what you want to achieve in your life pertaining to hope, health, and healing. Join us as our speakers share their stories. Our lineup of speakers include Jill Reynolds, the founder of Braveheart Workshops and our event host. Dr. Laura Wood, our keynote speaker, speaking on embodiment. Krista Alicia, our special guest speaker. Patricia Rogers, Dr. Susie Warden, Alana De La Cruz, Heidi Salzberg-Wild, and Tanya Gibson. The event will be recorded live. After the event, you will receive the recording by email. If you can't attend, you could watch it anytime. Your investment is only $28.99, so please register now. Go to braveheartworkshops.com. The event again is March 12th, 2021 from 1 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please go to braveheartworkshops.com and register today. The Connection Show, creating hope, health, and healing in 2021, sponsored by Braveheart Workshops in Live with Jill Reynolds. And joining me today is Mistie Layne. Welcome to the show, Mistie.
Thank you for having me, Jill.
Well, it's just a privilege to finally get to meet in person. And where are you located today?
I'm down right on the Texas-Louisiana border in the southeastmost corner of Texas in a town called Port Arthur.
Awesome, awesome. Well, you and I had met on Facebook probably a couple years ago.
Yes.
And texted, messaged each other. And so it's my first time to actually get to have the blessing to meet you. And I'd love the audience to know just a little bit about who you are. So I'm going to read your bio. Mistie Layne went from being a Texas beauty queen and then becoming a surgeon did you become a surgeon? That
No,
brought you to become a surgeon, and then faced a 40-year prison sentence behind killing someone. Cocaine and domestic abuse robbed her of 10 years of her life and led to a horrific rock bottom she courageously describes in her best-selling book, What Goes Up. Mistie teaches her 4-step COPE, that equals hope method, which walks you through steps to release toxic shame and guilt, allowing forgiveness and love to emerge as a key to true inner peace and joy. After hiding her dark, ugly secrets for years, she now shouts with passion and transparency how she overcame her worst to live her best. She founded the Be That One movement, which encourages us to step up and share our raw, authentic truth, to educate others so we can judge less and mentor more. Her talk show, Dare to Share with Mistie Layne, provides a platform for transparency to evolve and freedom to emerge. She also hosts Right to Ignite, women's empowerment retreats. Mistie practices nuclear medicine full-time and is the vice president on Chemobuddies for Life. Misty is also a contributing journalist for several magazines. So, what an amazing journey you've been on, my dear.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm
Yes,
blessed beyond measure.
beyond measure.
Hmm.
And well, Misty, what I love to do on the Connection Show is I always tell my guests, they always want to know, like, well, how should I prepare? And I said, don't prepare, just be yourself and come on. And the Connection Show, I believe, stems from story. I believe that God gives us these amazing stories. And with those stories, I think it's a shame that we just sit on them. So I love connecting people on the Connection Show. And I love connecting the leaders, the speakers, with dots back into their childhood. So, if you wouldn't mind, would you share with us what little Misty was like as a little girl and how you grew up, what your family life was like, and then kind of where you evolved to those different journeys in your life?
Okay, well, Misty as a little girl, man, one word I think to describe me would be hyper. I guess today they call it ADHD. I don't know if it had a name back then, but I was definitely curious and hyper active, always getting into everything. You know, my parents would just lock the house down because I would get into it if it wasn't locked up. You know, I was very curious. Um, I was also, just as a child should be. I was free from the worry of the world. You know, my parents didn't. I didn't watch TV like a bunch of news or anything like this. The world back then was different. I played outside. I got dirty. I came in when the sun went down. I drank out of a water hose. I mean, I lived the life of a kid. It was awesome. I wish kids could be that way today. Yeah.
It's so here you're a little girl growing up, and did you grow up in that same area you're at now in Texas, Louisiana border?
I did. I grew up down here in this area. I left when I graduated high school. I did venture out and go to college, and I moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I ended up staying there 20 years. My dad went on hospice, and after I got released out of prison is when I returned back to this area, and I've been here ever since because now my kids are having kids and I've got grandkids. Now my parents are older, so I can't really leave. I need to be here as a support to them.
Yeah.
But
So take us as that little girl. You're this little girl, innocent, sweet. My sister sounded similar to you, and my dad used to call her his energizing bunny because she'd be all over the place.
mhm.
So, so this little innocent girl growing up in Texas, and then what happened? Was it high school? What journey took you down that rabbit hole, Alice's rabbit hole?
Looking back, I think it started much younger than I thought it did. I didn't really know I had any problems until my first marriage ended abruptly, around adultery. But you know, I was in beauty pageants ever since I was about 4. I'll never forget the very first beauty pageant I won. It was called the Miss Tiny Tot Review. I had on the yellow dress with the white polka dots, the lace gloves. I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday. The little ruffled socks, the little bobby socks. And I remember when they crowned me Little Miss Tiny Tot Review and put that crown on my head, the sense of power that I felt. Like, okay, this is powerful. And I liked it. I liked the power that that gave me. And I think that that kind of set the stage for me all through school. I was very competitive. I was very accomplished. I went after everything. I was in dance. I was in music. I was in science. I pretty much was an overachiever. I didn't know any boundaries. Um, but what happened with me, I think, is at the same time inside, I was growing a type of rebellion against this perfectionism. And it wasn't that my parents were putting any pressure on me, it was me. It was something inside of me doing it. Um,
Mm.
and I know that that's when it all kind of started in my high school days because I remember my senior year, I sat in my chemistry class one day and I started pulling my eyelashes and pulling at the mascara and pulling until I had pulled every eyelash out of my eyelid.
So
And
if
after,
you pause for just a second, because
Mhm,
again, Misty, I love connecting dots, and I've done lots of my own personal work. And so when I hear stuff like what you just
mhm.
shared, I think it's impactful, and sometimes the people I'm interviewing don't even know the answer to this. So I'm one of those, like, let's pretend we have this movie camera going
Yeah.
and we're filming you, and
Okay.
then we go, wait, pause, let's go back a track. So let's go back a track to the word you just said. At some point, all of a sudden, you took on this burden of perfectionism.
Hmm.
So take us back a frame or two in your mind's eye and look at little Misty of what was going on where this perfection came in. Where did it come from? I mean, you said it wasn't your parents, but it doesn't. And I say that to you because I believe this truly. I believe that I'm a Christian, when a baby's formed inside the mother's womb, inside that womb, it starts to take on different blessings and burdens in the womb.
Hmm.
It may take on the blessing of I'm wanted, or it may take on the burden of I wasn't wanted. The second that baby comes out of the birth canal, the minute it does, it takes on the burden of abandonment from the mother. It takes on the burden of anger when it cries and gets slapped on the butt. It takes on out of the burden of detached when they cut the umbilical cord. So I believe we take on burdens from the moment we come into the world, and I don't look at them as negatives as much as they come into us, and it's what do we do with them. So at some point, this little girl at 4 years old is competing, and so at some point perfectionism came in. Can
Hmm.
you recall any memory of when that came into your life?
I just, around that same age, I was in twirling, and I remember I had to be the best. I had to win everything. I had to be the first one. Just, I was just born with the competitive nature. And with that came having to achieve. And if I didn't achieve, then I would get really down on myself. I mean, like I said, I didn't know these things were even happening or were a thing until later in life when I looked back and did some work journaling around it. But um, looking back, I can definitely see that that was a problem for me, the whole perfectionism thing. And I don't want to put, the pageant system down, because the pageant system did a lot for me. I got scholarships to college through pageantry, but there's a lot of pressure there at the same time to be, look good on the outside and not pay attention to what's really going on the inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
I started using food. College age, I started the food addiction thing started in, when I was no longer the best, because now I'm in a bigger arena with a lot of good, high powered people, and now I'm no longer the best. It was easy to be the best when you're in a small little school, but now you go into a bigger arenas and you're not winning at everything. You're not first chair at everything. You're not winning the titles. You're not the highest score in the class. And food was my comfort when I didn't win. So that whole thing was just feeling a void of feeling less than inside.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that, because not funny, but it's again connecting the dots. I think what a lot of people don't realize, and it's really impactful for your story here, is at some point then, and again, doing burden release, connecting of the dots, is never about blaming. It's never
Right.
about, like, oh, I'm going to blame my mother, or I'm going to blame the pageant, or I'm
Right.
going to blame, but it's about connecting the dots so that you can have hope, health, and healing in your life.
Absolutely.
Because if we don't take the time that is needed to pause and reframe the frames, it's very difficult when certain other things come up in our lives. And all of a sudden that burden just hits us smack like this, and we're like, wow, where did that come from? Well,
Right.
when we take time to connect the dots, we can slow it down enough to say, wow, I'm acting on this, and this. What's going on? So if you take that frame again, you're in these pageants, you're competing. I'm sure you have the coaching and stuff telling you got to look this way, you got to walk this way, you got to, da 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 da, you got to. At what point then do you recall the body image issues coming in? Because I hear the perfectionism, but I also see this burden that comes in of body image, where you start to compare those around you. and you look at them, you look at their body size, you look at their faces, you look at their figures, and you start to compare.
I think for me, that hit me around my sophomore year. I was a dancer. I was very active. I wasn't overweight by any stretch, but I developed early on. I had large breasts, I had thick dancing legs, and I'm short. So it's in a short package. And I always envied the girls with the long, drawn out, thin legs, you know. And being a twirler, we had to wear those tight sequins bodysuits. And I always felt like the fat one, even though I wasn't fat, you know, I'd love to have that body today, but compared to the taller girls on the line, I started feeling that, you know, like I was envious of that. Um,
Did you
but
start having your coaches for the pageant say you had to lose weight? Did they start telling you anything about size, or don't you recall that?
no, because we didn't really have coaches until I got up to the state level. It wasn't really, um, it was just kind of me, you know, it was just you entered a beauty pageant kind of thing, you know,
Your
the
head,
coaches.
your own head was saying you got to look like this. You got
Yeah,
to,
or hide certain parts with this kind of dress, or you know,
yeah,
you wear this kind of blouse to hide your boobs, or whatever it was, you know.
yeah. So you're doing this, and then again, I was a little confused. It says the Texas Beauty Queen and at the brink of becoming a surgeon. So at some point,
On the brink of it.
was your mind saying, "Oh, I really would like to be a surgeon. This is something."
No, I was in medical school studying to be a surgeon. I was at the brink of becoming a surgeon when
Wow.
I got addicted to cocaine. That's when
Uh,
I found out my husband of 10 years had another woman pregnant. I was completely devastated. I was very naive, very vulnerable. I saw the world as a beautiful thing. You know, I didn't see all the ugly in the world. I hadn't experienced that part of life yet. So when I found out about this adultery, this had been going on, he was an alcoholic. It just, my whole world came crashing down. But see, what happened to me because of the perfectionism, when he cheated, I internalized it like it must be my fault. I wasn't good enough. He had to go somewhere else. I wasn't pretty enough. I wasn't smart enough. I couldn't keep my man at home. When in actuality, it wasn't my problem at all. It was his. Not that I didn't have any accountability in the relationship or culpability, but it wasn't anyone's. Like, I couldn't, I internalized it and I took all the blame. And with that came the shame. And with that came the low self esteem. And now I became a timid voice where I used to be a loud, proud voice because now I feel less than. And that's when things changed in my life drastically.
and how old were you then, Misty?
29,
And you were living in Albuquerque then?
Albuquerque. I
Okay.
had
And
just
you're going
gotten.
to, so you're going to med school, your
Mhm.
world crashes. Had you had any children yet or no
Yes,
children?
I had both of my daughters. They were young. They were like kindergarten, second grade.
So
Very young.
you're trying to manage those balls, wearing those different. I like Amy Grant's song Hats.
Yeah.
Now I'm a mother, now I'm in school, now I'm a wife, you know, trying to manage all those hats, going
Hmm.
to school with intensity of medical school, and your beloved husband is cheating on you and gets another woman pregnant. So at that point then, where did the cocaine come in and the domestic abuse?
He ran off back to Texas with a girl from work and pretty much left me high and dry with the kids, took all the money out of the account, did me kind of dirty. And I just went into a really dark depression. Some friends, some college friends started getting me up, getting me out of the house. We went out country and western dancing. I met a guy. He was awesome. He was very charming. He said, I'll buy you drinks if you teach me how to dance. And we just started dating. And he was my gateway into cocaine. Never, you know, I was that girl at the college parties that I wouldn't even go towards those rooms. I had
Yeah.
been hit by a drunk driver when I was 15, almost died. So I was very anti drinking, very anti drugs. I was a good girl. I was a good girl. I mean, you know, I was that. My brother used to pick on me and call me a prude because I wouldn't even smoke a joint. I mean, I was just a good kid.
Hmm.
And so Robbie was my segue into the dark side. And at that point in my life, I didn't respect my moment of choice. The first time it was offered to me, I didn't stop and think about the consequences. I was vulnerable. I really didn't care. I was hurt and I felt it. My mindset was, okay, I did everything right and it got me nowhere. So I want to see what it's like to be bad now. It's like I wanted to be the bad girl.
And that first line of coke is a slippery. I'm a recovered crack cocaine addict, so
Yeah.
you get that line, and then you start on those drugs with sex, and it's like no stopping you.
Well, the powder, I managed the powder okay for like 6 months. That I could handle it. At least I thought. But then it was when I was introduced to crack cocaine, and that first hit of crack cocaine, I'm telling you, it took me down hard and fast. That was the devil. The very first time I got that crack in my system, boom, I was addicted. I couldn't go without it. It was nonstop. It just, within a year, I'd lost everything.
Yeah, I remember my last couple of weeks getting high, being at a table with about six of us, and we'd been up for like 4 days, 5 days, and someone pulled out a gun and said,
Oh,
"I'll kill you guys if I can't take the last hit." And I just said, "Wow, we are really insane." My eyes were sunk, and I was down to like 96 pounds. I'd go for the only thing I ate for was a bowl of cereal per day for I don't know how many years, but yeah, I could relate. So when did the domestic abuse come in then?
so after Robbie, one of our drug dealers, is someone that I thought I fell in love with. It's actually my son's dad, if you call him a dad. I mean, he's not really a part of his life. He wants to be now. He's
His
cleaned
sperm
up.
donor.
Yeah, but he's tried to be his dad. My son don't want any part of him because of the domestic abuse aspect. But he I fell in love with him, I thought, because he made me feel good. He tried to get me off the drugs. He tried to warn me what I was in for, because he had been an addict himself for years. And we decided we were going to beat this addiction, and we packed the truck and headed to Texas to move away. I had gotten a job at a hospital, and we made it about 3 hours down the road, ran out of crack, couldn't do it, drove all the way back, picked up more, tried to go again. Finally, it was him that finally stopped and threw everything in the dumpster and said, "We're doing this," and kept driving. And we got off the drugs. Well, about 3 months after that, when we were setting up a home and trying to get things going, um, a rage came over him for the first time, and he hit me. He was extremely jealous. Of course, the cocaine makes you paranoid, and that was just his brain, from all the years of it. But he punched me in the nose and broke my nose for the very first time. I was blindsided by it. I'd never in a million years thought I would ever allow a man to do that to me. And when it happens, you can't, never say never is a chapter in my book, because you don't know what you'll do till you're in that, till you've walked those shoes. You just can't. You can't judge people. You cannot do it. Um, it put me in such a place where he was controlling me. He would hit me, and at this point we had relapsed, because then he would go find, I would kick him out, which is the right thing to do. Then he'd find the drug, bring it back to the door, and give me cocaine, because he knew it would relieve the pain. Because I mean, I'd broken nose, my eye was swollen shut. So
Well, and
this was the
he knew
vicious
how to hook
cycle.
you. He knew how to hook you. And
Literally, he
yeah,
could
and
hook me, and literally, he could hook me.
right. So I mean, if you threw him out and he knew that he can get you addicted again with the crack cocaine and
That's
you need
exactly.
him, then he'd be able to stay. So,
And
you
that's what
know,
happened
I
for
I I,
years.
I one thing that I learned a lot with recovery is a term that if the audience isn't aware, it's called co-occurring addictions. So when you're addicted to one aspect, like crack cocaine,
Yeah.
you get off of it, then your next addiction might turn into codependency, where you just allow people, places, and things to become more important than yourselves, that you lose your identity. So when you get off the crack cocaine, then you get enmeshed with a codependent relationship. That codependent relationship has the risk of maybe falling apart when you threw them out. The only way to get back is to take that co-occurring addiction and go right back into the drugs. It's a
Yeah.
realm, and
I
it's
think that's been one of the hardest things, Jill, that I've had to overcome. Even behind killing someone, and the guilt that comes with that, is the domestic abuse. The physical scars, those heal, those go away, you recover, but it's those deep embedded, the verbal and emotional abuse that comes with it. That stuff is tough. It's
hmm
hard.
yep.
He had me feeling like I was stupid. I was a whore. I was nobody. Um, Put it this way. He was so jealous and constantly accusing me of sleeping around, which I didn't. I was too afraid. I was scared to death of him. But he constantly accused me of this one black man that he just knew I was screwing him. And I wasn't, it was nothing like that. I got pregnant with my son and I was petrified. I had dreams and nightmares. He had me convinced that that baby was going to come out black. And I'd never even slept with that man. That's how, no, I'm serious.
Yeah, I
That's the
know. I'm not
control.
laughing at you. Yeah.
That's the manipulation. And I was like, there's going to be some freak of nature thing happen and this kid's going to come out black and he's going to kill me. And I didn't even sleep with the guy. That's how bad it was.
Yeah,
And
trauma and it is so deep. And when people say like, when are you going to get over it? It's like, oh my gosh, and the emotional abuse is probably, sexual abuse is horrific, physical abuse is horrific, but deep emotional scars that
yeah,
go into the trauma, the brain that holds that trauma, it's
yeah,
so hard. So take us then to the next stage of killing someone. Was this who you killed?
no, I
Okay.
thought about it a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, I would have.
No,
No, I should. So what happened?
thought about it. So the addiction was getting worse and worse and worse. The abuse was worse and worse. We were just pretty much, losing everything. And he went away to prison. Um, Came back. I cleaned my life up. He came back.
What did he go
That
to prison for?
Lots of stuff, just lots of stuff. We were doing so much stuff, and he had already had a record, and just lots of stuff. But he like credit card fraud,
Hmm.
stolen vehicles, just all kinds of stuff that comes with the whole crack thing.
Hmm.
Um, he went to prison. I got away from him. Was doing really good. Got away from the drug. He got out of prison. I was convinced he turned his life around. I let him back in the door. That's when I actually got pregnant with my son. Is during I had gotten pregnant. No, I'm sorry, I had gotten pregnant. That's why from him before he went off. Then when towards the end of the pregnancy he was released, and I let him back in because I had his son in my womb. And I was, he would use God. He would use scriptures against me. He was a real good. These abusers, they're master manipulators. They know exactly where to go to get us. Like you said, to hook us. And he would use scripture against me. Well, I've changed. God's made me a new man. You've got, I'm the father of the son. Da 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 da. I let him back in the door. Things were good for a little while. He was able to control his temper for a little while, and then it all went south again. He hit me again, and boom, here comes the crack cocaine again. 3 months after my son was born. I mean, that fast. And it was all, every time we relapsed, it was after he hit me and he would go get it to numb the pain. So, it was definitely a vicious cycle. I just, so leading up, it's so hard to go into a quick little synopsis because there's such a long timeline here where he was gone, he was back, he was gone, he was back.
Well,
But
just to
what
pause
brought
on
us to
that.
the
When
wreck?
people hear you say this, I just want to pause a moment so the audience really gets this. I really believe from the bottom of my heart, Misty, that codependency is the most deadly disease on the face of the earth. I really believe more than any disease I've ever seen. And my best friend Kathy died from this with her boyfriend and their heroin addiction and going to, in and out. She literally walked out on her husband and left her 2 kids to go out with another guy and stayed in this codependency where they'd get clean, then codependent, clean and codependent, clean it. And what people don't understand, it's like sometimes they'll look at you and go like, why did you keep taking them back? It, it, and I know you had said the domestic violence was the worst, but my gut says the codependency was even worse than the domestic violence because the codependency is that piece inside of you that keeps saying, I got to be with him. It's going to be different this time. It's going to be different. It's going to be different. And it keeps going back into that realm. And your brain doesn't know how to break it. I mean, the one therapist that I had that showed me this more than anything said, when you're in a codependent relationship, this is what it looks like. Two people so enmeshed. And then this is what happens, Misty, is when one person starts to recover. So let's hypothetically say he goes off to jail. The hands come apart. This one person goes here. The other person is left here.
Yeah.
If this person doesn't do their own personal work to heal and start to move up to here, this
Mhm.
relationship has only two choices. Either A, for this person to relapse, come back down here and get enmeshed again,
Which is
or
usually what
this
happens.
person has to get recovered and you have to stay interdependent. And
Right.
if that doesn't occur,
Right.
then this codependency will keep going in a circle for the rest of your life.
Right. And it's also like a two-pronged sword because early on, after my husband had cheated on me, my first husband, I was seeking validation. I needed validation from anybody that I was good enough. And he was a master at it. It's that whole honeymoon cycle. When he was vicious, he was horrible in a rage and vicious. But then there was that really charming side of him where he would hold me and pray with me and lift me up and tell me I was smart and beautiful and I deserved better. And, you know, it was just like this whole mental thing, that was happening inside. And I needed both of those. I needed the validation, I needed the lifting up, and maybe I was addicted to the chaos and the trauma too. I don't know, but it wasn't until we both went away to jail. He went off to prison again. I got bonded out, and I relapsed on my own. And that's when I got attacked and robbed, lost control of my car, ran into a parked vehicle, which in turn hit a lady standing in her yard, knocked her in the house, and killed her. I woke up and thought my world was over. I mean, at first, when I woke up at the scene, I didn't know I hit anyone. I was just trying to escape these people that were attacking me. And all I could think about was going home to my son, because my mom had my son and my daughters. I wanted to get home. And the lady on the road said, "You can't go anywhere. Don't you know what's happened?" And I'm like, "No." And then I just passed out. So next thing I remember, I woke up in a hospital. My mom's standing over me and she's just sobbing. And I'm like, "Mom, what's the matter?" I mean, I had enough sense to know I'd been in a wreck, but I didn't know I'd killed anyone. She's like, "Don't you know what's happened?" I'm like, "Mom, I'm okay. Look, I'm okay." And I reached up to hug my mom to console her, and I felt that cold, angry steel around my wrist, and I knew something was wrong, but I had no idea. And she's like, "Honey, you've killed someone." And it was like that gurney became quicksand. It sucked all the breath out of my lungs. I just remember I wanted to die. Like the guilt I felt. It was the most horrible feeling. I've never been suicidal, even through all of that, but not having the will to live, having to find the courage every day to wake up and take a breath to fill your lungs with so you don't die. It was tough. It was excruciating because of that survivor's guilt. Um, it was hard.
So
That's where
they sentenced you to 40 years in jail for that?
I got charged with vehicular homicide, which carries a 40-year sentence, and that's what I sat in jail for 7 months awaiting to go to trial for. That ended up, so during that 7 months, I was losing my mind. I had no therapy, no counseling, nothing. I was actually in jail with the girls that attacked and assaulted me. It was a horrible, it's looking back, it's horrific, but there's also little pieces of it that God just put little silk ribbons through that are just beautiful, intricate stories. I don't know how we are on time, but there's just so many. There's like three of these most beautiful little twists to my story. But one of the girls that attacked me, I ended up getting her into the Bible. I helped her and taught her, and she got her GED. She went to the judge. She said, "I punched her in the face. I'm the reason she lost control of the car. This isn't her fault." She tried to make amends for what she had done. She's later learned she's OD'd and passed on, but she was a product of her environment. Her mom started prostituting her at 12. That's all she knew. That was her life out there. So um, so during this 7 months, I had nobody to turn to. I didn't have any counseling. I'd killed someone. They didn't even let me see a psychologist or anything. So I turned to writing. I just started writing everything down that would come out of me. I had to order the pens and paper on commissary, and I just kind of like emotionally vomited all over the paper. And that's where my book came from. My book was very dark. It was very full of blame and anger. Um, but the writing of the book was the release that I needed to live. And the DA heard about the book. He came and visited me, spent about 2 hours with me, which is unheard of. You don't get to see your district, prosecutor. It just doesn't happen like that. But he did. and he kind of looked through the stained and tattered pages, and he said, "You don't belong here." And I said, "I do belong here. I've killed someone." He said, "Misty, this isn't your life. What's happened to you?" And he said, "I'm going to get you help." So I was very blessed. They reduced the charge from vehicular homicide to negligent homicide, which is accidental death, and the sentencing went from 40 years to 5. I got the maximum sentence of 5. I ended up doing 2.5 years in prison, and then was able to be released on paper for the rest. So it was a beautiful, beautiful journey to be able to go through that and come out the other side of it, and still, like, want to live through it, and then to learn to use it. So fast forward, 9 years went by after I got out of prison. I started rebuilding my life. I already had a nuclear medicine career. So thank God when they reduced the charge, I didn't lose my medical license, because it went from a nonviolent crime, meant from a violent crime to a nonviolent, which saved my medical degree. So I rebuilt my trust, my name, my integrity in the nuclear medicine world. 9 years later, I didn't want to do anything with this book, because I didn't want anybody to know. I was ashamed of that person. I didn't want anybody to know I was once that person. So when my grandbaby was born, on the same day, 9 years later, September 18th, of the same day I'd killed someone, she got stuck in the birth canal, suffered a brain injury, came out blind, deaf, couldn't suck, couldn't cry, couldn't hold her temperature, just tons of problems. I had a hard time relating to her, because I realized it was the guilt. I was blaming myself for her birth defect, because she was born on the same day as the wreck. In my brain, I'm like, there's no way that's a coincidence. This is my punishment. I did this to her. So I couldn't connect with her. And then I realized, okay, you're letting your past rob you of your future. You have a grandbaby that you can't even, you feel guilty every time you hold her. So I had to do a lot of soul searching, a lot of self journey. I went back and I took that book and I rewrote it. Instead of anger and blame, I rewrote it out of a place of accountability and forgiveness. And it changed my entire world. Once I stepped up, spoke out, took accountability, and learned to forgive not everyone else but myself. Learned to forgive Misty for allowing the man to beat me, for allowing myself to get so enthralled into this addiction, for allowing myself to be out there on the streets like I was, torn up, prostituting, the abortions, everything I had done, that I was just killing myself with food or whatever, or letting a man beat me because I felt I deserved it. I finally learned to forgive myself. And that's when my whole world changed, because God didn't bring me through all that, Jill, for me to stay ashamed and stay silent. God brought me through it so I could step up and speak out and be out there and be a voice to help others. And my whole thing's around transparency. I don't sugarcoat anything. If you get my book, What Goes Up, it is raw, it is honest. A lot of people, I have to give you a warning if you read it, because I don't hold back. I tell you the way it really is on the streets. Yep. And it changed my world. And that's kind of how I got to where I am today. I've learned that I can't hide behind that anymore, because that's not helping anyone. Like I said, I feel God saved me for a reason, and that reason is to step up and speak out.
So today now, Misty, you are still working in the medical field on nuclear. What do you do with nuclear medicine? Are you in radiology, or what do you do?
Yeah, I inject radioactive isotopes into patients. We look at everything from brain death, child abuse, to cancer in the bones.
So are you considered a radiologist yourself, or are you a medical practitioner?
Yeah. I'm not a radiologist. A radiologist is an actual MD. I'm not a doctor.
Okay.
I practice nuclear medicine. I also do PET CT scans in the oncology world for the cancer patients too.
Okay. So you do that full time.
Yeah.
And then you also then started is it your own podcast show? Be that one? Is that your?
No, I have a TV show called Dare to Share with Mistie Layne, because the hashtag Be That One is a movement that I started where I encourage people to step up and share their truth, to help each other gain awareness and education, so that we can judge less and mentor more in the world.
Yeah.
So Dare to Share is the platform that I provide for people that do want to finally have the courage to step up and share.
And where's that platform on? Where is that?
E360 TV every Tuesday and Thursday night at 6 p.m. Central. You can find it on Roku, Amazon Fire. It's pretty much everywhere, all over the place.
Great. Well, at the end of the show, I'll make sure that you email me that so I can put it in the link on the YouTube channel with this interview so that we
Okay.
can find you there. So tell us a little bit then for the joys of this. Share just briefly then, where did God come back into all of this? Was it in prison? Where did God come back into your life to help you to completely be a changed human being?
God never really left. I'm the one that kind of skipped out on him. But I would say when I was sitting in prison is when I think, my spiritual strongest, because I was able to really connect and I felt his arms around me. I felt him lifting me up, it's just the way it worked for me, but
Hmm.
in so many other ways too. I have 3 children that I damaged them. I drugged them through 10 years of hell. And, to be able to have those relationships rebuilt and be so strong and so amazing today. I'm so close to all 3 of them. They're just wonderful kids. That God had his hand in that too. God touched their hearts to forgive me and teach them what forgiveness looks like, and my parents and my family and all the people around me. And for me to be able to get back into my career. I mean, how blessed am I that I did
And what
all of
about
that?
your little grandbaby?
She's passed away. She
Oh,
passed away a year ago, January. My daughter, and I have to say, everything I drug my kids through, it definitely made them strong, resilient. They can combat anything that comes their way because they've had to live through it. So when Eliana, I mean, my daughter's the strongest woman I know to date. My oldest daughter, Lauren, she is amazing, superwoman. She dealt with Eliana, her and her husband Glenn, for 4 years. They were the best parents ever. But her health wasn't getting any better. She was actually declining some, and it was constant 24/7 care. And they had to make a decision to let her go and take her off her meds and let God do with what He wanted. And she lived almost 36 hours, and she died in my daughter's arms on January 11th. And
oh,
but
oh,
that too was God, because she died January 11th. COVID hit in February. She was a respiratory baby. I couldn't imagine the nightmares we'd have been through with her, trying to manage her through COVID and keep her safe.
yeah.
The timing, God's timing is always the right time. And my sister always used to tell me, everything is going wrong just right because God is in control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is the truth. And I'd like to at this moment just show your bio so that the audience knows how to find you. It's got your websites on there, and then I'm going to have those links too on your TV show so that they know how to find you and connect with you. But I feel so honored and blessed that you shared all of that journey with. We'll have to talk after on our own time here because you and I have so much
Yeah.
similarities. It's uncanny. Um, but I felt, Misty, that God was telling me this year. It was like it was so clear that He said, "This year, Jill, I want you to do I want to change your brand from Restore, Renew, Reconnect, and Community to Hope, Health, and Healing." And your story is exactly what God's been sharing with me, that to have hope in our lives, we got to have God. I mean,
Yeah.
our hope comes from God, I think. That's what and the healing, the health is, I feel like the health of our body has so much to do with letting the spirit flow within our body so that we can stay healthy. And then the healing of the spirit and the mind and the body is so imperative. So he just keeps telling me hope, health, healing. And, all of a sudden he just started bringing these women to me and said, now I want you to do a virtual online event. And I'm like, okay, I really don't want to do this, God. And he goes, I know, but I want hope, health, and healing to get out to the world. So I'm like, all right. So I just don't see what this is supposed to be, but I hope maybe you can come to it because I think it's going to be amazing. Dr.
Yeah.
Laura Wood, her and I have just become so close. She is the most amazing therapist I've ever met in my entire life, and I met her when I was in treatment for eating disorders in 2015, and she was my favorite therapist who actually did modalities twice a week on drama therapy and improv comedy. And so her and I did 7 retreats together for burden release. And she's going to speak on March 12th for a whole hour on embodiment and how to get this burdens in our body out of our body to heal the body. So she's going to speak on that, and she's amazing. So if nothing, everybody that's listening, come to my event just to hear Dr. Laura Wood. And then some of these other women's stories are just amazing. Krista Alicia, recovered addict, and God just told her to start a prophetic ministry, and she's got over 120,000 followers, and she's does revival rooms all over the country now. So just cool women, cool stories, cool healing, and you know, your hope, your health, and healing is so apparent in your story. It's so apparent how God's just taken hold of it, and the journey is still beginning. I look at that. It's not over. It's still beginning. You never know.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I'm rebranding myself this year and going through that now. And you know, last year I was set for my Right to Ignite Women's Empowerment retreats to launch, and then COVID hit, because those definitely need to be a hands-on type of thing. It's like 20 women or less in an intimate setting where we do some ugly crying around a campfire and just kind of heal through, you know, with each other. So hoping to get those launched out again this fall coming up. And then
well, I got some great locations. So you know I planned the events. Did you know that?
Yeah.
And then all you got to do is show up and be there. That's why Laura loved working with me, because all she had to do was get on an airplane, get off of it, and I'd pick her up, and she'd do her event, and then she could go back home. And she was like, Jill, you're the best event planner. I can just do my thing, and I don't have to worry about anything else. You got it all covered. So, yeah. Well, listen, I just appreciate you so much, and we're going to get those links out there for you. And audience, I just hope that you'll reach out and get her book and just stay connected with Mistie and listen to her show. And we hope that you will register today, if possible, to braveheartworkshops.com for the March 12th. It is going to be fully recorded, so if you have work and you can't attend, you will get the full recording. So thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. And Mistie, it's been a privilege to know you.
Thank you. And you're coming up on my show soon, too.
Awesome. I look forward to that. Thank you so much. Everyone, have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining the Connection Show. Thanks for joining us on the Connection Show. Let's connect now. Let's restore, renew, and reconnect in community. Enhance connection in our online connection circles. It's a place to meet up, gather, and feel welcomed. To join us, go to braveheartworkshops.com. Click on the Books Podcast tab, and then the Connection Circles drop-down. On the pop-up, join our Connection Circles Facebook group. Our circles meet from 8 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Share story, topics, and laughter with men and women. To learn more about Connection Circles, go to braveheartworkshops.com. Thanks for joining us on The Connection Show, and have a great day.